You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Ian McFarren, a partner at ROL&M Attorneys and host of the Lockdown Law podcast. Ian focuses his practice on workers' comp and Social Security disability matters in Salinas, California and Watsonville. Ian, how are you, my friend?
Ben, it's a beautiful day here in Northern California, and I appreciate you having me on today. I look forward to talking with you.
I love it. Thanks for being here, man. I'm glad we made it work. You know, it feels like it was a long time coming, so it's cool to have you on here.
And it's nice because I feel like we have similar schedules. We're both dads of young ones, so
relatively young. You know, just going to bed. Well, we're different time zones, a few hours later here, but yeah. Definitely have a similar thing going on. So really quickly, like, what's the COVID situation out there? Like, I know in like Southern California, I think LA went into like masks on. I'm just curious, like, how you guys are doing.
Yeah, the Delta variant is no joke. It looks like it's way more contagious, and it spreads quickly. So right now you have to wear a mask in most places, whether you're vaccinated or not. I think that'll hopefully just be temporary. And after that, the rule was, if you're unvaccinated, you wear a mask into, grocery stores or places like that. And if you're fully vaxxed, then, you didn't need to wear the mask. But for the time being, that seems to have changed.
Yeah, it's kind of the honor system. And I don't know, people who might not be vaccinated might not want to wear the mask. That's kind of the whole idea, I think. So it's one of those things that you got to trust your fellow citizen, but it's definitely very tough and convoluted. I feel like everywhere right now.
Yeah, it is. And it's unfortunate because, I feel like a month ago we were starting to think we'd be out of this mess, but sort of relapsed.
Yeah, no, for sure. We're definitely hitting another surge of COVID. So anyway, so diving into your story, you were featured on Lawyer Stories. That's lawyer_stories on Instagram and Facebook.com/Lawyer Stories on July 22nd. You start out your story by telling us that your dad was a Vietnam vet. He's retired, but you said your dad's a Vietnam vet, former mayor, lawyer, and professor. That taught you at a young age that community is like family. Like, I love that. Like, I'm a big fan of community. We started this Lawyer Stories community, and I often wonder like how tight it actually is. Like, I see people like kind of commenting on each other, and I think they're meeting through Lawyer Stories, which is really cool. So I'm all about community. So like, I'm curious, like you said, your dad like taught you about community at a young age. So like, that must mean a lot to you because you practice sort of where you grew up, you have an office, but like, what does that mean to you, really?
Yeah, well, it's pretty cool. I mean, I grew up in Watsonville, California. It's a small town. It still is. I think when I grew up, it was 20 to 30,000 people. I went to middle school here. I went to high school here. And coming back, I think the thing that struck me was when I first started to represent people I went to high school with. That was really weird for me.
In workers' comp cases, mostly?
Yeah, mostly workers' comp is what I practice. So I help people who get injured at work. I represent a lot of farm workers here in Watsonville. We're the strawberry capital of the world.
Okay.
Represent a lot of UPS drivers, police officers, firefighters. And that's what I love the most about this job is just working with hardworking people really motivates me to do my job better. But getting back to your original question, I mean, even today I was walking around on my lunch break, just trying to move my back. And I ran into a teacher. I ran into another friend from high school. And I love that. And it puts pressure on you. You want to do a good job for your clients when you run into them at the grocery store, when you
Yep.
run into them at Target. And I've been doing it for almost 10 years now. And every day, that kind of stuff motivates me, man.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So like, it's kind of, you know, and I think like that's where you can build referrals off of, like, they know you're like the hometown sort of attorney, and then people want to go to you, they trust you. So you build sort of that rapport in your town. So like, when you were younger, did your dad encourage you to go to law school? Because he was an attorney, right? Like he was also like a mayor, which is kind of cool. Like, do you remember those days, or were you like super young?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, well, I think I was only 4 years old when he was mayor. He was mayor in 1989, which was a big year here. That's when we had the earthquake, and Watsonville is right on the San Andreas Fault. But I do remember getting to ride in like the fire truck during the parade. That was pretty cool. I was like, wow, my dad's awesome. He does that kind of pull.
So was he always telling you like, you should be like, I want you to be a lawyer, like we have this thing going on here, like this is important to the community? Like, when did you know that you really were going to follow in sort of his footsteps?
Not really. He knew I was really into history. I was a total history nerd. I still am. That's how I got into my podcast. But I would play Risk with my friends and Stratego. We'd play for hours, and my dad thought that was cool. In high school, I did Model United Nations, which was more, speech and debate stuff. But my dad never really pushed me to be a lawyer. He kind of had faith in me. I kind of fell in love with the law when I did my first internship at Chico State, helping kids with emancipations and grandparents with guardianships. But he never really pushed me. I just kind of fell into it.
You fell into it, yeah. So like, no, that's pretty interesting. So you did have a kind of cool internship at Chico State. Like, tell us what you were doing there.
Yeah, so that was a really awesome experience. It was called the Community Legal Information Center, and I ran the student legal services, which meant that I had to defend some of these students at Chico State who were going through the disciplinary procedure. So you kind of see all kinds of interesting stories. It's kind of like being a criminal defense attorney. Right. And I also did family law, helping kids with emancipations and doing guardianships, and kind of quickly knew that I didn't want to do any of those areas of the law. And I have a lot of respect for people who do that, because that's difficult.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. So like, how would you say like the practice, like your practice has changed since, your dad was in it, and like, what do you think is different now? Like, is it more technology use? Is it like, cases are processed faster? Like, what do you think the big difference is?
To tell you the truth, not a whole lot has changed. I'm so lucky to walk into my dad's practice, because, he had such a good reputation. He still does in this community. He's a little bit limited now. He's 72 years old. So he's definitely starting to slow down, which is sad to see, but it's part of life. But anyways, he would get involved so much in the community with the veterans community. Every year during Veterans Day, he would MC the events. He was involved in, a lot of different political committees in this area. And he was a people person. He just loved being around people. He loved helping people, and he built up this amazing network. And workers' comp is still kind of old school. And to tell you the truth, he retired 5-6 years ago, maybe, and not a whole lot has changed.
So like, do you see yourself within a political run sometime?
No way.
No way.
Absolutely
Okay.
not. No.
All right. You never know.
People like to bash politicians, and I understand why, but you got to ask yourself, would you want that job with all the scrutiny nowadays?
Yeah, for sure. I know.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on in the news, so I understand that for sure. So you grew up in Watsonville and went to Chico State. So like, how do you end up in Chico State? That's like a little north, right? I looked at a map today. So I like looking at the map of California, like I've been there a couple of times. There's just so many spots, like for somebody who's from the Northeast guy, I've lived all over New England. Like there's just so many cool like places to be in California. So sometimes I just get lost looking at the map over there. So like, how did you end up there?
Yeah, I love California. Well, my older sister went to Chico State, which is about an
Okay.
hour. It's about an hour north of Sacramento.
Yep.
So it is pretty far up. California is so amazing. I mean, I've gone surfing and snowboarding in the same day.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
I mean,
oh, wow. Okay. That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me where, but tell me where, like, where was the surfing? Where was the snowboarding?
Sure. So from San Francisco to Lake Tahoe,
okay,
it's about maybe 3-4 hours.
Okay.
So you could do it in a day.
Is it like like is it like people make a day of it? Like, is that like a thing? Like to like do that? Like that,
only weird people
sweet.
like me.
What's that?
Only weird people like me that want to just say that I did that.
That's awesome.
But that's kind of why I ended up at Chico State. Actually, my dad, I would say the one thing, he was very graceful, but the one thing he did kind of push on me was he wanted me to go to West Point.
Wow. Okay.
He even lined up, you have to get a letter of rec from a congressman. He even lined that up. But I was a snowboarder, surfer, skateboarder, and I was like, I'd rather go to Chico State.
Okay.
But I think he's proud of me anyways. I took over his practice and he gets to retire and he's still getting paid. So it's a good deal.
Wow. That is a good deal. So we're going to get into your podcast. Like, I think it's kind of super cool, like what you're doing, but I have a couple more questions. One of them is when you went off to law school, you went to law school in like Indiana, Valparaiso, right? So like, how did you end up in Indiana? I mean, that's more of a question than like, how did you end up 4 hours north in undergrad? But like, tell us about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the best thing I ever did at Chico State when I knew I wanted to go to law school, it was expensive to apply to places. So I found this law school fair in San Francisco and I drove from Chico to San Francisco. And there was about maybe 20 to 50 law schools there. And they were handing out vouchers. If you basically applied to their law school, they would waive the application fee.
Okay.
And so I just kind of applied to a bunch of different schools. I love basketball. Valpo had a great college basketball
program.
Yeah.
Are you a Kings fan or no?
Warriors fan.
Warriors. Okay.
Yeah. And I was a Warriors fan before they were good.
You knew what I was thinking. I was going to say you and Danny Tanner from Full House. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Well, I got my Baron Davis jersey to prove it.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's legit. All right. So anyway, we'll talk about that later. So, all right. So you went there, good basketball team. Like, what was that experience like out there? Indiana.
Yeah. Well, I loved it, to be honest. It sounds cheesy, but it's really true. Like out here in California, when you see your neighbor, you're like, hey, how you doing? You don't really mean it. You know what I mean? You're just like, okay, I got to go. I'm so busy. When I was in Indiana and I moved into a house I was renting with another law student, I mean, all our neighbors it was like you were instantly part of the family.
Okay.
They're like telling you stuff, like intimate stuff already. Like, this is what time we go to bed. This is what time we wake up. If you need anything, call us here.
Well, I gotta say, like, just to throw this in there, like, I think law students have that over like people. Like, they find out you're a law student and they're like, they invest a little more of themselves in you, and they want to know that you're there, right?
That's a good point. Maybe they were just using me.
No,
but I didn't know anything back then.
No, that's awesome that I think that's a big deal that you ventured out to Indiana and like went to school and got that experience. I think that's really important.
For sure. It was really good experience for me.
That's awesome.
The winters were pretty brutal though, man. I mean, I was right on Lake Michigan. So we got like the lake effect snow and it was like -20. It was.
I mean, I'm from Maine originally, so I know like coldness, I wasn't into the skiing or anything, but it was brutal. So, and Massachusetts winters are long. I'll tell you that. So, all right. So let's get into your podcast. Like, congratulations for launching that. I think that's really cool, man. we just got to start doing these things, right? And I think you've dropped like 30 to 40 episodes already, right? Which is totally cool. So like Lockdown Law. So like tell us like when you decided to just launch a podcast.
Yeah, it was right at the beginning of quarantine. It was February, March of 2020. I had some time on my hands. And like I said earlier, I'm a big history nerd. So I loved constitutional law.
Yeah.
And it's also outside my area of regular practice.
Yep.
So it's, I don't want to say it's more interesting to me, but I think it's good for my brain to kind of challenge yourself in a different area.
But is that something you liked in law school, or did that really get you sort of interested in the law, like con law?
Oh man, I loved constitutional law.
Yeah, I did too, actually. It was a while ago, but I really did too. Yeah.
Yeah, I love history. I mean, I was obsessed with World War II books when I was a kid. Like I said, I played all those dorky games with my friends, Risk and Stratego. I still play them with them to this day. No
Yeah, why
shame in
not?
my game.
Yeah, why not? That's awesome. So all right, so tell us more about it. Like you talk about constitutional law issues and
Yeah, well, Ben, one thing that kind of frustrated me at the beginning of the lockdowns was people on both sides, the left or the right, saying this is unconstitutional, that's unconstitutional, and not really making any sense or being able to
Right.
articulate why it's unconstitutional.
right.
So that is the whole purpose of my podcast. It's not a left or right podcast. I've had people from all walks of life. It's really whatever your position is, I want you to understand the Constitution a little bit better so that you can articulate whatever argument you want to articulate in a smarter way.
For sure. I think a lot of people just like to throw out there like that's unconstitutional, but don't realize like it's sort of, it has to meet certain parameters to actually apply to things, right? So basically, so your podcast is about, you take con law issues and you talk to people about them. Like, tell us about like some of the guests you've had so far.
Yeah, so it's constitutional law, history, politics, I would say would be the three genres. But I've been so fortunate. I mean, I got to interview the first female president of the ACLU.
That's
Nadine
awesome.
Strawson. Yeah, she's such an amazing person. Everything she's done. I've interviewed Catherine Tucker, who's litigated in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. She's doing some work now on magic mushroom use for people who are terminally ill, psilocybin. That was pretty cool to talk to somebody who's been to the Supreme Court. I just interviewed last week Kimberly Whaley, who is a CNN legal analyst, author. I've interviewed prosecutors, defense attorneys, and this has been a way better experience that I had ever thought of, getting into this.
No, I totally get it. Like, so are you reaching out to these people to get them on your show?
Oh yeah, I send a ton of emails every day and I get declined maybe 9 out of 10 times, but you got to just keep trying.
But hey, man, people are they're responsive to you and they're looking at it. And I think that's awesome, actually, because, that a lot of people won't do stuff that like we're doing, like put themselves out there, have an interest, you're really talking about con law and issues and got somebody like the first female president of the ACLU. And like, for me, like, I like talking to people about their life and like their story and like the why behind, why they became an attorney. And like, so that's really cool. So, congratulations on that. Like, what else can you tell us about Lockdown Law podcast? Like, where do you hope to see it go? Like, like.
Yeah, I'm just trying to treat it right now as a hobby. It's something I love to do, and you get it. You're doing podcasts, and I really enjoy listening to your podcast. I listen to it when I drive a lot because you're a people person, and it makes.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's true. The podcasts are fun, and I always learn something. But yeah, I mean, try not to get too serious with it. Just kind of talk to people I'm interested in talking to. Like I want to do one on President Nixon. I've kind of gone down a rabbit hole with him. He's a really fascinating president. So just try to keep it fun and hopefully it continues to grow.
So how often are you putting them out there?
I do about 2 to 3 a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
You do them at night, like when your child is asleep? Yeah, that's, yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah. That's probably part of the reason you love doing it is, you're so flexible with your time. You could do it on a Saturday or a Sunday or at
Yeah.
night.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. That's awesome, man. Like, yeah, I definitely try to like record mine in the evenings. But that's great. So is there like, if you could have like one or two people on your show, like who would they be?
Oh man, that's a great
Or like
question.
the top three people? Well, I won't say three if you're saying it's a good question, but and you have to think about it. Like, who are like maybe one or two people you think of that you would love to interview?
Probably Dan Crenshaw.
Okay.
He's somebody from the right I admire. He's a Navy SEAL. And Barack Obama on the left, I admire him.
Go big, man. Go big.
Yeah, I feel like a man without a party because I think both sides have a lot to offer. So right now, those would probably be, I think, the two most interesting people to interview.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, for sure. So like, what is like the favorite topic that you want to bring to the show? Like you've already said con law, you talk about like magic mushrooms, like super important. Like I know magic mushrooms also help like anxiety and, stress and depression, like small dosages, like that sort of thing. So like, what are you like, what's your most like favorite thing to talk to on the show?
Yeah, that's a good point. And they're expanding the research now to veterans who have severe PTSD. But what Catherine Tucker was saying when she was on my podcast, she's like, let's just start by agreeing if somebody's terminally ill and this is going to stop their suffering, like as a society, that should be a no-brainer to us. So
For sure.
but that's a great point because the research is expanding. But well, it's hard because like my podcasts with the prosecutor and the criminal defense attorneys, those get the most downloads for sure. Like people love criminal law. For me, again, I'm a history nerd. Like I did one on James Buchanan, President Buchanan, who was president right before Lincoln, who was probably the worst president ever. I want to do one on Nixon. I did one on World War II with the Fresno State professor. So like, I love the history podcast. So I would probably just do those all day, but nobody would listen.
That's not true. And Ian, I'll tell you what, like if there's anybody you ever see on Lawyer Stories, or if there's anybody like happens to follow us or like we follow them or like you're interested in, let me know. And I'm happy to try to do like a warm introduction and say like, my buddy Ian, like I'd love to, help you out with that. Like that's what we do. We like to connect people here at Lawyer Stories.
No, I appreciate that. And you put in the hard work and you're legit about it. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Thanks. It's been a long road, it's part of my story, this whole thing. And, it's been fun and, yeah, for sure. And I love to hear about, other people doing similar things like the podcast. So, cause I think when somebody starts a personal brand, like just to get off topic a little bit, when somebody starts a personal brand and they have a podcast and I looked at, your Apple page today and a lot of podcasts, 45 minutes to an hour long, in-depth conversations. Like, I think that's awesome. Like you're taking the time to explore something that you're really interested in. And so congratulations to you for doing that. So I actually wanted to ask you like a couple more questions about like workers' comp and social security disability. Like which do you do more of? Actually, I don't mean to be all over the place, but I'm just kind of curious.
No, yeah. I would say right now I'm about 70% workers' comp and 30% social security disability.
So like now that you're a partner in your firm, like what do you like and what do you dislike, would you say?
Well, I really love the setup I have with my law firm right now. So we actually, there's 9 partners and we have 4 different offices. We have one in Santa Cruz, we have one in Monterey, we have one in Watsonville, and we have one in Salinas.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I get to run the Watsonville office. So it's just me here. So I really have the best of both worlds because I have the autonomy to manage my own office, but I also have the security of a lot of different partners who are smart. I can bounce different cases off them. So I'm really lucky to be in this position.
Would you say you're in court a lot or no?
Yeah. With workers' comp, there's a ton of hearings.
Okay.
And that's another thing I love. I mean, when I first started off, I was doing like interrogatories for a personal injury lawyer. And that was, I'm not a big research guy. I fell in love with workers' comp because, you're going to court a lot and you're interacting with people, and it's right up my alley.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So what do you do like when you're not working? Like what do you do for fun? I know you alluded to taking trips across California for snowboarding and surfing, but
oh yeah, I love going to the beach. I mean,
yep.
If I get a couple hours off, that's where you'll find me. I really miss playing basketball at the gym. I used to play basketball, once or twice a week, and that was just really good competition. That's been the hardest thing.
So why'd you stop?
Yeah, I know. The whole COVID thing.
COVID, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I forget about that sometimes, but yeah, no, I know. That's like, actually, that's like me, and I play like a lot of softball, like I love softball, but then I tried to take up golf last year. And then this year I haven't done anything. I've driven golf balls once. So yeah, I mean, it's important to have those hobbies. It's crazy, man. As a kid, we're out there like playing basketball and baseball all the time. And then it's like, these life things happen.
I know. No, I think baseball, tennis, golf, I've tried to dabble in all that stuff during COVID, but I miss like indoor basketball. There's just nothing like that. You don't have the wind and stuff to worry about, but that seems like the least safe thing to do. It's too intense.
All right. So those are some of your things. You can still ski, I guess, and or snowboard or whatnot.
Yeah.
So like, is it really like do you have to deal with the business aspect of your law firm? I'm jumping all around here. So like, is that something that you have to deal, or do you have somebody doing that sort of thing for you?
No, I have a lot of help in that regard, for sure. Cool. Yeah, it is good.
So
I'm terrible at it.
So tell me, like, do you network with other attorneys, would you say, or is it, your good name at the firm that sort of brings people, your clientele in?
No, I love doing the bench and bar meetings. I just was on one today. It's all virtual. It's not the same, but yeah, I miss the Santa Cruz County Bar Association when they, have picnics or stuff like that. I was involved, but things sure have changed the last year or two. You definitely feel way more isolated.
Oh, totally. Are you doing a lot of hearings, like virtually, and like, are you working from behind the computer a lot, or no?
Yeah. So with Social Security right now, it's pretty much all over the phone.
Okay.
With workers' comp, if you have to go to trial, you can do, it's sort of like a Zoom kind of Skype deal, but it's not the same. And most stuff is just over the phone now.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ian, was there anything like we left out? Like, do you want to talk more about the podcast? Like, I know we sort of covered a lot from, the time you were a young college student at Chico State to going all the way out to Indiana for law school. But, I want to make sure that we cover everything about your podcast. I'm definitely interested in listening to it and, promoting it and having people know about it, the Lawyer Stories community.
No, I appreciate that, Ben. And yeah, I do miss those college days. It's fun to talk about Chico. Those were some of the best days of my life. But no, I think
we can talk about some of those if you want, man.
That might be for a different podcast.
A different podcast, all right.
Yeah, but no, I really appreciate you. I mean, just following you on Instagram, and I've connected actually with, you talk about Lawyer Stories being a community. I just connected with an attorney in Santa Cruz through Instagram, and just
good
sharing each other's stories. So
from Lawyer Stories or no?
From Lawyer Stories.
Good, man. That's what I love that.
Yeah.
That's the essence of what we're doing, my friend. Like we have some cool things coming up. We have a website. You should check it out, thelawyerstories.com. And I'd like you to, if you ever have blog posts or anything, like we'd love to post them up there on our website. It's brand new, came out like a month ago. So we're pumped about it. And we're going to be doing some cool things that I have in mind. But yeah, no, those are the stories like I love to hear. Like you connected with somebody through the platform.
Yeah, no, I'm going to continue to follow you, and you keep up the good work. And yeah, for anyone who's interested, the podcast is called Lockdown Law, and you can, find it anywhere, Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, all that stuff. So take a listen.
Lockdown Law. We'll try to link to it. We'll throw it up in our stories. Good stuff. Ian McFarren, thanks for joining us today. How can everybody get in touch with you?
You can contact me on Instagram. My username is Lockdown. You can go to my website, www.lockdownlaws.com. And yeah, shoot me an email. Let me know what you think. Any suggestions for future episodes. And I would appreciate a follow.
Awesome. So stay right there. Everybody in the Lawyer Stories community, thank you for tuning in. Wherever you are in the world today, enjoy yourselves. Cheers.